then the API generates market insights. So we have, generic queries like, what's the average price of a home in San Francisco? What's the average price of a home in Princeton, New Jersey? There's so major and also minor metro areas. And then the output is an exact number, but also it's provable. So there's a lot of on-chain, they're not huge yet, but there's a lot of on-chain service providers for, I guess, real estate information, right? One of them being this property-specific pricing engine. So, for example, you could assume the price of the house that I'm in right now, right? Or the house you're in, or whatever type of building you're in right now. But you don't know the precise answer until somebody can inspect the property. Somebody can look inside the property and understand the condition of it. And that's really the missing piece that not only our protocol, Resi Finance, is missing and we are creating, but the entire on-chain space. I honestly see like Bittensor as a moat and like subnets as a like future leaders of industry, or like the titans of industry will be built and enabled by Bittensor. So yeah, that's something that we haven't covered, but it's quite simple.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today we are joined by Seby, the founder of Resi, Subnet 46. We cover real estate on-chain through open source pricing feeds, on-chain prediction markets, real estate-backed stablecoins, AI-driven inspections and agent competitions, tokenizing titles, replacing realtors with flat fee protocols, revenue from data insights and financing yields, and how their subnet ties all of this together. Now, back to Seby with the 65th Ventura Labs podcast.
Seby of Resi, Subnet 46. You're one of the newer subnets in the ecosystem, and you got a little slide deck here. But what is your elevator pitch for what Resi is and what you guys do?
So elevator pitch for Resi is basically this first slide. We're the real estate oracle. Real estate can't come on chain unless you can price it, right? And one of these slides, I say, you can't sell what you can't price. You also can't lend against or borrow against what you can't price. So that's what we do, right? That's one of our core missions, is that to bring real estate on chain, and also to accelerate the development of real estate. There needs to be an open source data feed and open source pricing feed, so that any sort of new innovation is actually possible. But right now, that doesn't exist.
And before we get into your subnet too much, what's your background? Why are you in the real estate sector?
So I actually grew up like knowing I was going to be in real estate. So like, but when I was 8 years old, I have like this vivid memory of going to work with my nonno, that's a grandfather in Italian, in Brooklyn. Him and my uncle are builders out there, and they took me to work, and I got to see the like scale of what they were doing and the impact. And it's like, wait, so you can just buy something like a beaten down like a building and then make it beautiful, and then people have this place to live. So like that in some weird way just like really affected me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So then by the time I became of age, I turned 18, my birthday gift was real estate classes to become a realtor. So I did that for a bit. Then I worked at a real estate iBuyer, basically a real estate technology company, kind of like Open Door plus Zillow, right? They were a brokerage as well as an iBuyer. And actually at 19 years old was like running the tech in that office and the funnels and marketing integrations of that office. So as that shut down with COVID, I said, okay, I have all this, knowledge. Let me go build a real estate software. And that's what I did. So my childhood best friend and I, we went and built a product that found who was going to sell their property in any sort of market in the country, right? So you just tell us what kind of deals you want to do, and we would just put those types of prospects in front of you, basically the lead engine. So that was a major success. That basically, catapulted our careers and, financial freedom per se. And ever since, we've been in crypto. So I always say that real estate was my first love and crypto was my second. Now I get to, put it all together with Resi.
And when did you start getting involved with
Yeah,
crypto?
so this was funny enough that company that I worked for, the founder or like the CEO of that company, I became really close with him, and he was as I sold his entire portfolio of like 10, $11 million worth of property the month before COVID hit. So I was like, why are you doing this? And he was trying to explain this crypto thing to me. And then as he literally put all of his money into crypto at I think it was like the $6,000 Bitcoin low of COVID, he did tremendously well. Let's just say that, right? Until the end of that year, right? That trade was phenomenal. And as he started it, he started to explain like the implications of crypto. And it just opened my eyes to the fact that, okay, we've been in this, been in this old system. We're transitioning to a new type of economy, a new type of world, and the traditional rails just won't support it. So, yeah, since basically the month COVID hit was the month I was like, okay, crypto's amazing. So as we started making money with the prop tech company, all of the profits or everything that would go into my pocket or my co-founder's pocket went right into crypto.
And what was your introduction to Bittensor?
Yeah, so my introduction to Bittensor was from Shadi Peterson, the owner of Infinite Games Subnet 6. This is somebody I look up to a lot. I see as like a marketing mentor per se. And while I was working at Compound Finance, I got connected with him. And it was just natural to see what he was building, understand that there's something there. And then, right, I saw Endgame. I saw this, I'll call him Mike Contango. That's how I consider him. I saw the video of Mike Contango just go completely, in depth on like the different revolutions that the world is going through and landing on the intelligence revolution and how Bittensor plays into it. And I was just amazed. I was like, whoa. I went from putting in like 25 to 30% of my, income into Bittensor or Tau to 100%. It was just every single dollar that came to me went into Bittensor. So that was quite amazing. And I actually never did, I never bought any sort of alpha tokens or played any sort of subnet, DTAL games until I bought Resi. And this was now 30 days ago or so.
30 days
Right.
as a subnet owner. And you guys got your start. Your repo is based off subnet 13. What was the reason for that choice?
Well, there's actually a couple reasons. The first is that the Macrocosmos team is incredibly intelligent. The way that they set it up was, perfect for our first like MVP. Let's start this process of building out a database, right? There's many ways that we can build out value for Resi, and there's like data, there's intelligence, there's like real world service as well. But with data, they basically, I say like they walk so we can run, right? That's essentially what forking a code base is. We're actually this week relaunching our code base to a completely new incentive mechanism. So it was great to use theirs, but it wasn't perfect because the costs of APIs are completely different than, say X or Reddit. I also think that this is just an observation that from my side, not anything that I have as like definitive information, but I feel like to hit the scale that they're actually scraping, and you can't just like keep paying these API costs. To my understanding, Data Universe is not like this, 2% emission subnet. So just the numbers to me make sense more on scraping. So we're now moving in that direction. Also, the validators were like, dude, this is so expensive. It was like $6,000 a month just to do the validation on all the data that was coming in. So that is why we started there, but also where we're going on that note.
And your subnet in its current form, I don't know what the update's going to look like, but you could probably touch on that, is essentially just scraping all the information on Zillow for housing.
Right. I think this does a good example of that. Right. So the data layer here, and these are all revenue figures, but the data layer in real estate is, one, incredibly valuable, but two, it's controlled by two companies. So how they work is they get data from public data sources. We call this the MLS. Right? That is this section here. It's basically where all the realtors import their data. And so Zillow, being right here, we import data from Zillow, from Redfin, Realtor.com, really anything that is a public source, right? In terms of legality, it is legal to scrape sources that don't have a login or a, price, like a subscription that's needed to access that data. So to do it legally, that's the direction we're taking, but it's also extremely accurate because we can cross-reference these sources. The entire real estate industry, like residential specifically, runs off of, Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. So that's our goal, is build out this nationwide property database at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time, and then create a data product.
What do you think the demand is for the data product? Or is there more to this that you guys are going to do?
So the data product is actually extremely in demand. So what you can see here is like on-chain and off-chain is what Resi is attacking. Starting with off-chain, it's massive. On-chain is growing, but off-chain, the data requirements for the industry are like $1 billion revenue per year, and that's on the low end. These are all private companies, so we're kind of just spitballing with that figure. How do these realtors and investors and hedge funds and REITs use this data? Is actually quite simple. They use this data, and then they have massive teams to create insights, right? Or they pay massive subscriptions to generate these insights. So where should we be investing? What neighborhood should we be focusing on? They don't even, like, for them to get their own data is also very challenging. So just getting their own data from the market, right, from Zillow, and say, okay, we made these sales and this is how we are performing as a brokerage or a lending company. They don't have that, right? These are also traditionally really non-technical audiences. So being able to give them data plus intelligence, and we have a few different, packaging mechanisms and versions of that, is everything to them.
You mentioned off-chain is obviously much bigger in this space right now. How do you bring that on-chain?
So we actually have one use case here. Here we go. So one example would be prediction markets. So if you are a real estate lending company, you have massive exposure to the real estate market. That being said, and if we can all, kind of look back to 2008, you can then say, all right, well, how could this have been, avoided or hedged? And the answer is actually extremely simple. Could use prediction markets. So what we have here is just one example of how we're going on-chain, but prediction markets powered by Resi essentially work where we have this database that the miners and the validators create as like our first step on Bittensor. Then the API generates market insights. So we have, generic queries like, what's the average price of a home in San Francisco? What's the average price of a home in Princeton, New Jersey? So major and also minor metro areas. And then the output is an exact number, but also it's provable, right? So there's a lot of on-chain, they're not huge yet, but there's a lot of on-chain service providers for, I guess, real estate information, right? Chainlinks talk to a couple, but they're all black boxes. I don't know if you've seen this. This is like new on our radar, but Figure HELOC is a $12 billion stablecoin in terms of market cap. And they're using that stablecoin to offer home equity loans. But we don't know how they underwrite those loans. We don't know how they're pricing those properties. It's probably not efficient as well because it's not using scalable AI to do that underwriting. So there's a ton of costs that take away from yield and margin for the business and users. But we are entirely open source in terms of how are we getting this data, where is it coming from, when we give any sort of pricing or an output such as this, you can literally go cite, okay, what CSV of properties were used to come up with this, right? So Polymarket's had this huge problem of the Zelensky suit, debacle. Was Zelensky wearing a suit or not, right? And there's like their Oracle mechanism through UMA has been stress tested and it's been like really, problematic in some cases. So with our case, it's like, okay, we're going to give you an output, but you'll be able to prove this. And like it's permissionless as well. So anybody can access it. Anybody can prove it.
How do you brought up an example of a stable coin there. How do you have this real estate backed stable coin and how do you do these underwritings for real estate deals on chain?
Okay. Let's find it. Yeah. So every day, like the winners of the next age are essentially DeFi protocols and off-chain protocols or prop tech companies building. But we are going to be one of those companies, right? So how are we doing this financing? So to kind of take a step back to go a million forward is Resi is an infrastructure layer. So we are part of like the service category on Bittensor, and our goal is to create a niche specific database and then niche specific intelligence products. One of them being this property specific pricing engine. So, for example, you could assume the price of the house that I'm in right now, right, or the house you're in, or whatever type of building you're in right now. But you don't know the precise answer until somebody can inspect the property. Somebody can look inside the property and understand the condition of it. And that's really the missing piece that not only our protocol, Resi Finance, is missing and we are creating, but the entire on-chain space. So how that works is quite simple. If you think about getting a loan today, whether it's a mortgage or a home equity line of credit or a home HEA, right, which is kind of like a home loan that you don't pay back until you sell, which are really cool. How they work today is you go say, hey, lender, I need money. And they're like, cool, what do you need the money for? And you say, property. They don't know the price of that property. So they go through a discovery phase. In that discovery phase, they do a couple things. They make sure, one, that the person you're talking to and buying it from actually owns it. Two, they send an inspector out, or you essentially pay for this if you're buying the house. Send an inspector out so they take pictures and videos and do a whole, like, some of them are like 50-page reports on what's the status of this property. And then they have an appraiser, right? This is somebody in-house, almost like they're essentially on the underwriting team of these lending companies. And then they say, this is how much this property is worth. So if you want to get a mortgage or if you want to get a home loan against this property, you're able to do that with confidence. So that is the missing piece, right? There are products and such that say, oh, I have a house in this zip code. It's 3 beds, 2 baths, 2,000 square feet. How much is it worth? And it'll give you a range. But like I said, you can't sell, you can't lend, or borrow against what you can't price. And we are that real estate oracle, that price feed, because we have the data, and then we also have the ability. Our next step is doing an agent building competition with real world inspections. We have a partnership with an inspection company, and we are then feeding that to our miners and our validators to to make this engine that actually prices within, 0.5% or 1% or below what the property sold for.
What is that part going to look like? Getting the inspections on chain. How do you do that permissionlessly? And what's this agent you're partnered with, or you're making with a partner that does inspections?
For them right now, they're just like a training data partner. That being said, that's how we get data in to make an agent that knows how to price property, right? It needs these inspections if it's going to be an appraiser, right? It needs data inspection to appraise. How do we do this for Resi Finance, the Resi USD stablecoin for real estate backed loans? Is actually quite easy, and is the reason why we need this other protocol with a specific team for it. So what we'll be doing is we'll be doing marketing, saying, hey, do you want a loan that doesn't impact your credit? Do you want a loan that has all these benefits, is 5%, I'm just throwing a number out there, not financial advice, 5% APR. And if you do, reach out to us. Right? Our underwriting process will essentially be similar to the degree that, okay, we need to know how much your property's worth. So pay for an inspector. So they get an inspector that has a certification to do inspections. They send it through our portal. Then we're giving that to our miners and validators so that they can use their agent to say, how much is this property worth, right? Or if, that's one way. Another way is us just using the top performing agent and then continuing to use training data to improve that benchmarking. So basically, like similar to how Ridges is building their agent, and they can honestly just take that agent and productize it and return value back to alpha holders. Very similar to what we're doing.
How do you become essentially agnostic to the inspector that does the job? Because right now you have just one company that does all the inspections?
No, so we have one company that is doing the inspections for us to train on. So they have like hundreds of inspections they've done over the years or in the past year. And we're able to use that data to make this competition actually real, right? So we want to make this agent creation competition as simple as possible in terms of we need real inspections. We already have the real market data. But for inspectors, you need to be certified to do this. For a bank to actually, use your inspection as a verified source of truth, you have to have a certification number. So, and there's ways to check that. And that's what we'll be doing. So wherever, if we're doing a loan in Texas or California or Wisconsin, there are going to be inspectors in those specific locations that are certified, and we'll just work with them.
Do you anticipate ever making that part of the miner competition? Having certified inspectors?
Okay, so this is a great question. I'm pumped about this because phase one is using real world inspections. Phase two is I want a home loan. Cool. We'd love to give you a home loan. Now download this app or go to this website and go outside of your house, take a video around your house, go to the foundation and take a video around the foundation. And we'll basically have an application that does this inspection, right? Inspectors do a very similar thing in all cases, right? They go check the foundation, they go check the utilities, they go in the basement and they check if there's water damage, they go on the roof, or not the roof, the attic, and they check what's there. In some cases, if somebody wants to do an inspection, cool, we'll send you a drone, lift it up. It goes and takes a video of, we can use Swarm to do this. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to get inspection level information, which isn't through inspectors. And we plan on, like Resi Finance, the protocol built on our subnet is going to be responsible for those user experiences. But then we can also, that's a huge opportunity as well. That's a multi-billion-dollar per year global product itself. because this isn't just a USA thing. This is a global need. So it's an exciting time to automate these types of roles with AI.
And is the last step of this process, you feel, taking that broker role of actually being the facilitator of
Yeah.
these transactions?
So we see what we're doing in a few layers. So there's the data layer. We talked about that a bit. Then we have the Oracle layer. We talked about that. But then we also have execution, right? So this is really where consumer grade products are going to thrive or come to life, such as Resi Finance. Resi Finance uses the Oracle layer, which uses the data layer. And then realtor replacement type of transacting. But in our opinion, and our thesis of how this industry is going to change is that once you change the way people are, access capital, that flips the game on its head, right? The reason why you go to a realtor is because you need that distribution to buyers. But if there is a multi-billion-dollar pool of capital that says, hey, we are willing to buy these types of properties, and that company, right, Resi Finance, also has a ton of buyers saying, hey, we want to buy properties as well. It's just like a referral engine, right? So when somebody wants to sell, you then just refer them. And now instead of a realtor taking 6%, the seller can, get charged a flat fee. Say it costs $500 to sell your home, right? So that's like the North Star in terms of replacing realtors. You can also replace investors in terms of just like who gets access to deals. And then how does that get financed? Those are really the only two things that matter in this game.
And to achieve that, would you have to tokenize the title or deed to a house or building?
So that is actually something Chainlink's working on. And, we're pushing to do business with them as their, price feed for that specific, use case. That being said, we're not going to wait around, right? We're going to have basically like subnets, one of them being the, Resi protocol and the needs that it has there, Resi Finance, but then also validation, right? We need to verify. We need a verification engine that, Grant actually owns this house that he's selling to John, right? Because there's a lot of fraud that actually goes on just there. There's people that at the last minute say, send the money to this account. Hey, I'm John's attorney. Send the money to this account. And then the bank sends money there, right? And now a $500,000 loan goes in cash, now goes to the wrong guy. So yeah, that is how you do it is quite simple, but it's definitely needed. And that would be like the executional layer that again uses like an Oracle feed for truth of title ownership, which is quite simple. I mean, all the data is public information. So you just make an automation that to the county that says, hey, go reach out to the county, say you need to know who lives here. If it matches up with the information and the identification that is submitted by a seller, done, right? Then that seller in your application submits their information for where should money be sent. And now there can be no confusion in terms of where money is going.
And in terms of the execution here, would it look like the buyer and seller now come and put the tokenized title into a smart contract, and then once both sides agree that like ownership is changed in real life, then the smart contract executes? Or how would that look like? How do you enforce those transactions?
Yeah, it's an escrow contract. So just like you can verify ownership of the seller, you then put the money in the smart contract. The deal doesn't close until that new ownership is basically handed over, right? Hey, the money is here. And obviously we'd have to work with, banks to do this. But if the money is in escrow, this is how any transaction is done today, right? You have a lawyer that takes on this capital. You have a title company. They build out this whole form called a HUD-1. And then that basically initiates a transaction that then gets recorded at the county. So as that can happen, right, in the same day it's recorded at the county, right? So money can change hands. Yeah, it's a great question because, like, okay, now we have all this money in our hand or ready to be sent to the seller. How do we change ownership? So I hope that does it in a simple enough way.
A big concern with these real world assets and tokenization of real world assets is how do you actually verify in real life that the transfer takes place of the item? Because you can know that the token or NFT changed wallet addresses, but how do you know in real life that the transfer actually took place? How do you verify
so
that?
You store data on chain, right? So one of the things that we're doing with this new migration and of our miner code now is using pushing to use Hippius. Right? We're waiting on a few feature changes, but if we can have this data that is on chain, right, in a provable way, we can the doors open up tremendously. So if somebody wants to see that property address from our database on Hippius, they'll just be able to look it up, right? The same way you can look it up today. If you want to know the address that or really any additional information on a recent sale, you can just look it up. And many companies like the Zillows and the Redfins and the Realtor.coms and like True People Finder, right? They have this information of who lives there, when did this transaction happen, and yeah, as long as it's done on chain, right? Then we can bring it into DeFi. If you can't, then like you said, it's almost like vaporware. Like I don't know, right? And maybe not vaporware, but if you look at Figure HELOC, they're huge, right? But they're also backed by, I don't know if you know SoFi. It's like a new neobank, fintech company. Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm not familiar. If it's outside of Bittensor, I'm
good.
most likely
That's the way it
familiar.
should be. But SoFi is a big financial institution, or it's become that way in the fintech age, and they're the company behind Figure HELOC. So Figure HELOC is a completely black box. It's this RWA that's giving loans, or RWA stablecoin giving loans to homeowners. But like I said, we don't know what homes are getting those loans. We don't know how they're pricing those homes. So yeah, what we do is just make it like a greenhouse. Hey, this is exactly who owns what and when they bought it and how much they bought it for and the financing terms. And then you can encrypt those things on Hippius as people request.
So it sounds like the goal here is just to replace, I believe, MLS is the name of it, that centralized database for
Yeah, so
realtors.
I think it's that's inevitable, right? Like if we go back to the first step here, right? The MLS went from a book to the internet, and then once it went to the internet, companies like Zillow, they basically took it over, right? Zillow shows properties from the MLS, and the MLS is basically the multiple listing service or source, depending on how you ask. And this is where realtors list properties with all of their information, and then other realtors can access it. Right? So that used to be the old game. Today, like now you can just go find your dream home. In the future, everything is going to tend towards like for sale by owner. So the more intelligence we can inject into this industry, the more people will be able to just do a sale by themselves. I want to sell my house. Let me go to Resi. It's going to tell me how much it's worth in a ballpark. If I like that ballpark, then it's going to send me the ability to inspect it. So now somebody buying this house doesn't even need an inspection, right? So there's that time savings there. So transactions can happen faster. If the title is verified, right, that's a huge element that makes closing happen much slower. And then the end goal is you have like a Zillow-like environment Zillow will ideally use our API one day on the intelligence side, and use our data sources rather to enable one-click real estate purchases. Hey, you want to buy this house? One click. Yes, I want to buy this house. Or you enter an auction, right, to buy that house, and you'll be able to then go through the escrow process. But the house is inspected. There's a loan waiting for you with the terms that you need. You're already approved for that loan. And yeah, if you can do that, then it's buy.
Where do you think you guys make the most money here? Is it on those what are currently in real estate, the fees of the 6%, 3% for buyer, 3% for seller? Do you think that's where you make it? Or do you think you make it on the loan itself? Where do you guys
I think it's
make
on the
money
finance side. So we're actually trying to, and we can do this. We're trying to make like a flat fee for the real estate agent side of things. So if it can be a $500 cost to sell your home, more people are going to sell their home, right? So we're probably going to get the same, 3 or 6% type of value just in the increase of volume. But the real money is made on the financing. So whether this is, we just met with a company, a commercial company actually, that they charge 2 to 5% to tokenize these properties and allow people to access capital more flexibly, or refinance, right? You capital to buy or capital to refinance for commercial deals, right? Their problem is that, right, they want this 2 to 5% of this deal, right? The funding, but nobody trusts their protocol, their platform, because there's no third party price feed that is provable to back up their claims of that opportunity. So that's the where we fit, whether for our protocol in the future or other protocols. And yeah, the money is made on like the tokenization fee per se, or taking a percentage of the yield that is generated on a mortgage. And then, there's other money games. Like, for example, if you're a Resi USD holder, you'll be able to eventually go to protocols like Compound or Silo, or hopefully one day Aave or Morpho, and borrow, use Resi USD as collateral and borrow against it. Then you can go put more money into loans, right? Now there's like this leverage effect on a stable asset, which, from my time at Maple Finance, is extremely powerful. It allows for super, super fast growth, but also tons of high yield, right? Of which we would be getting a percentage of.
Do you envision a future where you guys create REITs with DAOs and you can make it like for specific buildings or groups of developments?
Yes, that's built into our design right now of Resi Finance. So hopefully we'll be able to. I love all these questions that I can't like show, because hopefully on whatever next show when I come back, I'll be able to show you like firsthand, like, okay, this is how it's going to be done with nice, pretty Resi graphics. But if you are a holder of Resi USD, the design is to delegate that into a vault, right? If you deposit USDC or USDT and then delegate the Resi USD we give you into a specific vault, we then send that capital there and invest that capital there. So it could be home equity loans. If you really want to be, think long term, you can do mortgages, right? 30-year mortgages. You can put it into commercial deals or residential deals. But in the past, it was, banks take your cash, then they go and lend it out. In the future, it's you have your cash, you lend it out. And you can lend it out into these different directions the same way that they do, right? They fund commercial deals, they fund residential mortgages and home equity loans. And yeah, by having an on-chain provable price feed, you now can be anyone and do that.
And is the only way to get one of these mortgages or loans going to be based off collateral, or will you create some type of credit score system or proof of income, those type of things that exist in the
I
traditional
think we'll do
world
both.
currently?
To be honest, I think that there is I know that there is a mechanism that says you don't need to hit your credit score. You could have the worst credit score. We don't even have to know your credit score. But as long as the deal makes sense, you're putting, say, 20% down. So we have some equity and wiggle room if the market goes down. And even in big crashes, market properties go down, like, say, 20%, right? So even in the worst case, these are quite safe. But regardless, you have products that we don't even have to know your credit score. You can just buy this property, especially if you're buying it on a good deal, right? The house that I'm in right now is actually found through my previous prop tech, and we bought it for $212,000. The day we bought it, fixed up, of course, it was worth $400,000. Now with market appreciation, this is a $500,000 home, but we only paid $200K for it. And, so we put 40,000 into it, 250K for a $500,000 home, right? Anybody would fund that. So like in a deal like this, like investor type deals, okay, we don't need to know, credit. Then let's talk about the flip side. If you're trying to buy a house and we want to be extremely competitive with other mortgage providers, okay, we're going to want to know your credit, right? And that's also going to provide different yield opportunities. So unsecured per se is going to be a higher yield for our investors. And then secured, right, using credit is going to be a lower yield, better for the whoever's getting this capital, whoever's buying the home, but also safer for the investor.
Before we move on, is there anything else in this slide deck that you feel like we need to
we went
cover
through the data
or should
layers.
cover?
Basically, why Bittensor? I think that this is a big one. If you were to do what we're doing in terms of on the data front, it would cost you a lot and it would take a long time. You need to go and buy a ton of computers, or you need to go buy some sort of access to a lot of computers. And then also there's not enough innovation, right? So where we could make some sort of scraping agent and go build this out, we're having miners build their own. And these miners are insanely intelligent, probably more intelligent than I am. And they're coming up with great innovation, right? I honestly see Bittensor as a moat, and subnets as a future leaders of industry. Or the titans of industry will be built and enabled by Bittensor. So yeah, that's something that we haven't covered, but it's quite simple. Our path to revenue, we went through that, right? We have enterprise data, then we have this API that prediction markets can use, builders can use, and then the protocol side pricing, prediction markets. We basically covered this as well too, right? Here, we basically just show today everything's closed, everything's proprietary or constrained, and then the execution layer are these realtors and lenders. But in the future, it's going to turn into protocols and agents. Right? Okay, cool. You want to sell your house? Cool. You're not going to tokenize your title. Okay, let's just have somebody on your phone that you can call at any time and text at any time be there to support you. Right? They'll do all your contracts. They'll do all your negotiations. They'll talk on the phone. I went through this. Yeah, so I could probably unshare my screen unless you have questions. We can go back to it. But yeah, the vision is quite simple, is that real estate is a service layer that needs to be covered on Bittensor. We have ridges with software engineering, right? Coding, that's a service. We have, I think it's called Nova. I could be wrong, but they're doing medicine. Right? We also have investment, right? Investment is essentially a service layer. People pay for investment advice and signal. That is being done on many different subnets, right? And we are one of those. I'd love to see, insurance happen on Bittensor. What are these real world use cases? I'd love to see engineering, where they have engineering, civil, electrical, industrial engineering. as one subnet with sub-subnets. But yeah, I think that was the presentation, like the essence of the presentation, right? We had a lot of questions from last time, like, whoa, this is quite complicated, especially to a group of, people, investors that traditionally don't own property. They're like, screw the man. We're not going to buy a property. We're going to rent a property and put all of our money into crypto, which like I subscribe to. But if you can buy a deal for half the market value, I think you'd think differently, right? If you can access financing at better terms, I think you'd think differently. And like a lot of people don't know about this.
You already covered my next question here with what do you think is missing on Bittensor with the insurance and civil engineering? Is there anything else you would add to that
So
list?
I actually just made a post on this last night. I'm super bullish on deregistrations. I think that there's a lot of like clutter, right? If you think of Bittensor as a house, like, there's some stuff on the floor. Let's just say that, right? There's some garbage outside that needs to be taken out to the street, um, and sent away, right? But like my thesis, and I wrote a bit about this, is we have a commodity layer, right? That's the top layer. I call this like primitives, or what are the AI primitives, right? We need data, and that's like storage and labeling and all the primitives in there. Aggregation, right? But different types. You need compute, right? So without compute, you can't do really anything in this space. You need energy and you need internet, right? And then you also need like this kind of primitive as well, and could also be put into service. You need model training, right? So the Covenant AI, consortium, like you need them really bad. Uh, so that's that. Then the next is like service. I call this like industrial layer. Okay, in the real world, what generates real value? So this is media, Bitcast. This is Ridges, software engineering. This is real estate, Resi. This is Nova, medical. Even like therapy, right? I think it's kind of flopping right now. I could be wrong, so apologies, alpha holders, but like medical, right? It goes into like therapy. Maybe Nova acquires better therapy, and that's like a use case that can be a subnet, right? I'll get to my app thesis, but with the next one is one of my favorites. I worked in DeFi, right? Compound and Maple. So the DeFi layer is awesome. I call it like VE DeFi, like voter escrow DeFi, so that it's not just like, let me give you incentives and you dump my token. Thanks so much. Now we have no more emissions to give out. There's like vesting these incentives, but one idea that I'd love to see, right? There's really two on this DeFi, but one of them is a standout. It's a launch pad. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but if the thesis is we have these layers, or these layers. If a real estate like Resi has builders that want to build, imagine if they had a launch pad where these builders had to stake a certain amount of alpha to be able to launch a token, like Resi Alpha, to launch a token on a launch pad. And then that launch pad incentivized liquidity, or basically helped graduate tokens or funded a team so that it can make this launchpad environment where you can have a layer 3, right? If Bittensor is the layer 1, Resi is a layer 2. What is that layer 3, and how can we optimize that experience for alpha staking? I would love your take on that before I go into the next one. I've kind of been good.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay, so you're saying a launch pad for applications on
Yes.
top of subnets?
Right, it's a one subnet that is a launch pad dedicated subnet. Its goal is to subsidize the launching on other subnets, right? So people stake onto this subnet small amounts so that they can launch, but also that to launch, they also have to stake on another subnet. Say if they want to build on Resi, or if they want to build on Hippius, right? They want to build a Dropbox or a Google Drive type of product. Cool, do it, right? There's going to be now a market for you with a liquidity pool. Here's how you do it.
Okay, the way to do that, it would have to be either partner with a validator or a validator that does that subnet. So, and it would have to be a large one. So they would have access to what the miners are actually doing without need for the subnet owner to cooperate.
Right. And I even see like the emissions going to like incentives, right? Incentives to the teams that actually win, right? And then they get this on like a vesting contract. Like, cool. You get these incentives, but you'll get them like over the course of a year, considering you graduate or considering you hit $1 million market cap. But yeah, it would be cool to see a validator do that as well.
That will happen eventually, for sure. Pretty much every idea that people come up with, it will eventually happen.
There are two
That's
others
my
that I'm like
perspective.
extremely excited about. I think Affine, I think is the name, or Affine, is doing like this interoperability
yes.
play, and they're kind of defining this new like layer in Bittensor, which is, okay, how do we get all these things to work together? In my opinion, the best product in that, and I hope that this is what they're doing, I could be completely oblivious, but would be like one API to rule them all. When I first got into Bittensor and I understood it, I was like, cool, people are going to have a Bittensor API, like this AI that replaces ChatGPT wrappers, and you can ask it anything, and it's going to go use the corresponding subnet. Like, I thought that was the function of root. Like, even if you look at the website, it's like the net, and you'd think that you'd call the middle of that net, and it would like find within its brain what to say. So there's that, and then also ZKID. The worst part about being a subnet owner is having to deal with malicious miners. Like, every subnet owner you probably talk to says that same thing. They're like, this is a great incentive mechanism. This is so fun and awesome, a great community. But oh my God, these miners are making it impossible because X, Y, and Z, right? So how do you speed up innovation? You do like this private zero knowledge identification to people who want to mine. And as long as they meet a criteria, you in this country, do a background check, right? That would be super helpful, right? If they do something wrong, then like a consortium of people can be like, yes, we need to know who this person is so we can litigate against them, right? That would be cool.
So to break that idea down a little more, essentially a social credit score for mining.
Yeah. If you want to put it like that, I'm not that like, I don't want that in the world, but I think that for mining, I do, right? I want the cycle time of development in Bittensor to get like as short as possible so that we can just do more. And when you think about like, oh, let me build this subnet mechanism, I'm like, oh God, like I have to just build it for every single wrong case. If you can decrease those like wrong, like incorrect cases, and people do it right now, right? Okay, who are my weight copiers, right? How do I get rid of them, right? You can't get rid of somebody you don't know, right? And then they would have to re-register with like their mom's ID or something. And they're like, I don't want this lady. She has no experience, So like you can start to like weed out miners. You can weed out validators as well, right? Because there are some like weight copying validators. I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other idea you have with the one API to rule them all. Many people have said this. Many people are like, yeah, it's going to happen. How do you think it will look in practice?
I think it'll be built on like, it'll use chutes. It'll have a running database, right? So the data of it is, okay, what are the functions of each subnet? And then a lot of ChatGPT and Claude, it's just asking, like, it's a lot of like prompt engineering on their side, right? When a marketing person asks you to make a piece of content for this platform structured in this way, and then ask them these questions, like 90% of the things, like search is simple, right? That's another thing. But like 90% of like the industrial level needs of an AI can kind of be prompt engineered before their output. So I think that's going to be like the subnet owner cut, like a team just for prompt engineers and developers that say, all right, let's just make these paths. So to this subnet, depending on its on-chain status, is going to do X, Y, and Z. And I like Resi, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're going to have a ton of protocols on Resi. If you call this one API, we have our database. That could be a protocol. We're not going to do that. It's like subnet native. But like, okay, are we going to call the database? If so, great. Okay, you want to tokenize something? Okay, cool. Here's this protocol that does that. You want financing? Cool. This is another protocol that does that. So we're like a small level that ideally can just, fit into this like root API.
I know some people working on this unified API. I don't know if that's their approach, but they have a few subnets under their belt. They just work with the subnet owner directly. But I got one last question for you here today, and that is, what advice would you have for people or trying to map traditional things, businesses, ideas to the Bittensor architecture, to a subnet model? You're doing this with real estate, which is a very traditional industry. How do you broaden that scope? What advice do you have for mapping those traditional things to Bittensor?
Make mullets. That's my suggestion. A mullet is fintech in the front or Web 2 in the front and crypto in the back, right? The like middle section of the hair in our case is like the AI, right? So the mullet type of products are going to win. I love Hippius like a lot. I'm like a Hippius stan at this point. And it's because they're literally building a product that already has like this massive product market fit in the Web 2 world, but is super high cost, right? So you get that benefit, but everything's on chain, right? With our case, if you can come to us and buy a house, you don't care if the money's coming from on-chain providers or if it's coming from banks, as long as we don't call your loan early, which I don't even think is possible once you have like a smart contract level execution and limited legal agreements, right? That people don't care, right? And like, for example, our demo, we have a dashboard coming out pretty soon. I probably shouldn't have waited 55 minutes to mention this, but we have a dashboard that's coming out. The dashboard is designed to look like Zillow, right? The dashboard is the top left corner, like when you do Zillow search, is not like put in an address. It's, okay, put in what you're looking for, right? Put in a question about the market you have. We'll show you that output and all the houses that go into creating that output on the right-hand side, right? And that's what I said. Make a mullet, because those products are gonna have like instant product market fit. For example, Ridges. This is like a software IDE. You don't have to know that it's on chain, right? Most people that end up using Ridges in its history will not know that it's an on chain thing. Same with us. People just know that the money shows up, and that's the important part.
Seby, been a pleasure having you on, man.
Thank you. This has been fun, and you have a great show here.